the story, the backstory of how I personally overcame my pornography addiction. Now, what prompted this video? This video was in fact in the works for a very long time. I just never had, so to speak, the time to make the video because obviously there was so many video ideas that I had that I've been pumping out for you guys. So hopefully you have been enjoying that. But it's something that was on my mind that at one day I was going to share with you guys that I believe will be very beneficial to all of you actually that are struggling with this vice and addiction. But what in fact prompted me was a subscriber actually reached out to me personally and actually asked me the question of how I personally overcame it. And even though I was going to make the video regardless, I thought, you know what, now that a subscriber has also requested it, it's time to make the video. So without further ado, let's get straight into this. Now, we have to set the scene. I have to cast my mind back for you guys. Now, for some context, I am 22 years old, right, as I record this video. Now, it took me nearly 5 years to overcome my addiction. Now, that is a very long time. A lot of obstacles, a lot of arduous hurdles that I had to overcome. Very difficult processes, and as I keep repeating on this channel, I'm not the finished article, but certainly in this field I believe I am relatively experienced because of the challenges that I've gone through, the trials and tribulations, etc. Now, I've had this addiction since I was 5 years old. I'm going to have to be honest with you. Now, it's not that I viewed pornography at 5. I started viewing that at the average age, sort of 12, 13, 14. In England, we call it secondary school. In the United States and Canada, you guys call it middle school, around that age. 5, what I mean is something that is called prone masturbation, where you lay flat on the bed, face down, and you have your palm in your genital area, and then you rub up and down, and then you climax. Obviously, you can't produce semen at that age, but it's the orgasmic feeling. So my brain was already being wired in a negative way, frying the dopamine receptors as you will, the pleasure center. So obviously you have those normal struggles, and it's more common than you think. And it was just because the feeling was so good naturally, I just kept doing it again and again in a repetitive way that obviously sinks into your subconscious mind. It just becomes second nature. So that continued for years. And then 13 is when it got a bit techie. It got quite difficult because now all of a sudden you bring in a supernormal stimuli into the mix, and all of a sudden you have this visual screen of two people, bloody hell, you have two people having intercourse on the screen, and it introduces the cuckoldery idea, that third person as a voyage, and that's very dangerous because then when you have intercourse when you're 18 plus with an actual woman, you have erectile dysfunction problems. Obviously now everything's in first person. It's very unknown. It's an unknown quantity, and that's not how it should be. And obviously the view of sex is completely unnatural and wrong. But then it becomes an addiction. It becomes a compulsive behavior, and I just couldn't stop. Day after day. It wasn't, some people say once a week, some people say a few times a day, some people say once a day. For me, it was a few times a day, continuously, throughout secondary school. And it was just a compulsive behavior. I just simply couldn't stop. And I am honest on this channel because I think honesty is the best policy in these cases, because I know how many of you guys struggle. So it's really important to relate and resonate. I got to around 17, age 18, and this is where it got really serious because now it was impacting my personal life. I had mood swings all the time. My emotions were fluctuating. I couldn't focus on my studies. I was having erectile dysfunction. I couldn't get hard at certain points. I felt as though I was quite weak and shy, quite introverted, and I was just having a lot of mental problems. And I knew this was an issue. I never came across the NOFAP community, but I just didn't know how to stop. I just couldn't find myself to stop. And for 4.5 years, when I fully committed to it and said, right, I'm going to quit this addiction at the age of 17, it was just before the pandemic. And I couldn't do it. I went 4 days and then relapsed. I went 7 days and then relapsed. I went 20 days, 30 days. The longest I ever went over that 4-year spell was a 4-month period, which was sensational. But there was a lot of edging, and you can argue that it wasn't a clean streak, but I did my best. It was just sheer willpower. And I just felt nothing was happening. The perceived benefits, I was getting some of them, but a lot of them I wasn't. This notion, this idea that my brain was healing, I just wasn't experiencing it. And this continued for 4.5 years. I tried to go cold turkey, which is a recommended method. Now, it might work for some of you, but how I overcame my addiction was not cold turkey. still ill. Which may come as a surprise to a lot of you because you assume that quitting cold turkey is the best solution. For me personally, what worked was gradually decreasing the behavior over a set period of time. So it was, okay, you're addicted to the supernormal stimuli, you're addicted to masturbating, okay, cool. So what is the first step? The first step is understanding you have a problem. That is the number one step, which I think a lot of us guys are already there. Now, I'm going to say something very unusual, which helped me in the end. So after going cold turkey, I believed that this was the next best solution, which ultimately played a big factor in me quitting, and it was gradually stopping over time. So then I quit watching porn, and then I was just masturbating to my imagination or just some pictures or whatever, just to gradually reduce it. And then I tried to reduce the frequency, and this was over weeks and months. Relapses did occur, but I felt as though, okay, this is a more sustainable level. This is a sustainable level of progress that I believe I can achieve. The problem was I got it down to a level where I was only masturbating once a week to my imagination, which was very good. Considering the position and the predicament I was in before, I saw that as a huge win. I saw that as a huge progress. Now, I'm not going to mention the in-depth or the intricacies in this video. Oh, goodness me. I'm not going to edit out the video, but I'm going to speak about the so-called intricacies in another video about how I really overcame it, and it's a very, very unusual, very peculiar method. So, it was how I actually overcame it in the end. And there is a method to the madness. It is quitting porn while still watching porn. You might laugh and you might think, Kem, what the fuck are you on about? So, gradually decreasing the frequency was the biggest solution. That will help you over time. Goodness me. The dedication, even though I'm ill trying to record this, goodness me, my throat is finished. But it was gradually decreasing the frequency. But then you have to understand, and a great book to read on this is Atomic Habits by James Clear. He speaks about the cues and the triggers, setting up a conducive environment for you to thrive. But it's all about the cue. The reason why you have these addictions in this case as well is because you have a cue. I was having a coughing fit, so here we resume. Apologies. So I was speaking about the cue and the trigger. Two concepts that are spoken about in the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. Fantastic book, please read it. And he speaks about how the environment has to be conducive. So if you have a negative habit, in this case, this vice that we're speaking about, that means it's a certain cue in the brain. Because it's so desirable, so pleasurable to the brain views it from an efficient and an effective standpoint. Now, I'm not a scientist, but this is the reading that I've done, the intensive research that I've done, and obviously it's worked for me. So it views it from the perception of efficiency and effectivity. You gain so much pleasure from it from basically doing nothing. It's instant gratification that the brain wants to do it on a repetitive basis. So the cue is you get an urge from whatever it is. It could be social media, it could be a good looking woman, whatever, but it could be boredom. You get a cue. The trigger hits. So what you need to do is you need to snap that relationship in order for the brain to heal. And that way, by the brain healing fast, ultimately the receptors in the brain start to heal in terms of in relation to the dopamine, right? So that's why I know there's a method to the madness, but it worked. And I'm going to go into proper depth in a separate video. It might even be tomorrow. We'll see how obviously what the list is. Now, you watch porn while trying to quit porn. So hear me out. What I did was I went an entire month, hard mode, cold turkey. I know I said don't go cold turkey. Don't go cold turkey for the entire time because you'll relapse at some point, which is what I did for 4.5 years. You only go cold turkey for 1 month. And when you go cold turkey for 1 month, I'm talking no triggers, no pornography, no masturbation, no orgasm, ideally not even any sex. 1 month. After that month, you start to watch porn again. You don't touch yourself, you watch porn. But you have it playing in the background. So you do sit-ups, you do push-ups, you might even tidy your room. You have it on for about 5 minutes. And what you tell yourself is, it's just two people having sex. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. Because what you're doing is you're breaking the cue to trigger. So the cue is there, but you're not performing the trigger. So you're breaking that relationship. You're breaking that sort of trigger, so to speak. And that's the whole point, because you're rewiring your brain. This is the whole entire purpose of this. And you do this the next day, and the following day, and the following day. And eventually, after weeks and months, porn doesn't arouse you anymore. The idea of two people having intercourse doesn't arouse you anymore. It shouldn't. It's cockery. You are a man. You're supposed to be a man of essence, with masculinity. That shouldn't turn you on. And then that's when you quit, because porn doesn't have any effect on you anymore. And then you keep reducing the frequency of the masturbation to imagination. And that's where, of course, at one point you're going to get into relationships with women, and then it stops completely. As I said, method to the madness. I'll go into more details in a separate video, but trust me on that. That is how I overcame my addiction. So, if you enjoyed the video, don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, hit the bell notification, and I'll see all of you guys for my next video. Peace.